Neville Goddard Radio Lectures, number 5, The Law of Assumption. July 1951, radio talk station KECA, Los Angeles, California, just down the road. The great mystic William Blake wrote almost 200 years ago, "What seems to be is to those who it seems to be, and is productive of the most dreadful consequences to those to whom it seems to be." Now, at first, this mystical gem seems a bit involved, or at best, to be a play on words. But it is nothing of the kind. Listen to it carefully. What seems to be is to those to whom it seems to be. That is certainly clear enough. It is a simple truth about the law of assumption and a warning of the consequences of its misuse. There's a lot in that statement. The author of the Epistle to the Romans declared in the 14th chapter, "I know and am persuaded by the Lord Jesus that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean." We see by this that it is not superior insight, but per blindness that reads into the greatness of men some littleness with which it chances to be familiar, for what seems to be is to those to whom it seems to be. Experiments recently conducted at 2 of our leading universities revealed this great truth about the law of assumption. They stated in their releases to the newspapers that after 2,000 experiments, they came to the conclusion that what you see when you look at something depends not so much on what is there as on the assumption you make when you look. What you believe to be real, what you believe to be the real physical world, is actually only an assumptive world. In other words, you would not define your husband in the same way that your mother would. Yet you are both defining the same person. Your particular relationship to a thing influences your feelings with respect to that thing and makes you see it in an element, and makes you see in it an element which is not there. If your feeling in the matter is a self element, it can be cast out. If it is a permanent distinction in the state considered, it cannot be cast out. The thing to do is to try. If you can change your opinion of another, then what you now believe of him cannot be absolutely true, but relatively true. I mean, we all know this. Men believe in the reality of the external world because they do not know how to focus and condense their powers to penetrate its thin crust. Strangely enough, it is not difficult to penetrate this view of the senses. To remove the veil of the senses, we do not employ great effort. The objective world vanishes as we turn our attention from it. We have only to concentrate on the state desired, to mentally see it, but to give reality to it so that it will become an objective fact. We must focus our attention upon the desired state until it has all the sensory vividness and feeling of reality. When through concentrated attention our desire appears to possess the distinctness and feeling of reality, when the form of thought is as vivid as the form of nature, we have given it right to become a visible fact in our lives. Each man must find the means best suited to his nature to control his attention and concentrate it on the desired state. I find for myself the best state to be one of meditation, a relaxed state akin to sleep, but a state in which I am still consciously in control of my imagination and capable of fixing my attention on a mental object. I have to say this. Yesterday, I got up early at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30, something like that. I studied for about 2 hours, went back to bed about 5. It was Sunday morning. Went back to bed about 5. and was in bed till 8. I had a 1-hour lecture known as Blake on Religion by Neville in Neville's voice on in my headphones. So I heard it once, and I knew it was not on anymore because I often listen to tapes when I'm asleep. I listen to meditations or what are they called? Binaural beats. I listen to those oftentimes without words, sometimes with affirmations. So this one, I went back to sleep, and I had the Blake on Religion, and I was listening to it. I was in and out of a state akin to sleep. Then I knew it was over because there was nothing coming through. So I had come back into my consciousness. Then I pressed play again on my headphones. I have, those beats. So I pressed play on the headphone and started going again. And then I went back into deep sleep. And then I actually had a total, it was a very lucid experience, but I was in this dream state where I had Blake piping in, but on a certain level, I arrived at a place where I could fully comprehend and realize what movement means when you're in the fourth dimension, and that anything in the fourth dimension you can just aim your intent, your law of assumption usage in the fourth dimension. I had this mind expanding realization in a very ultra flash of an instant. I mean, literally, it must have been instantaneous, instant. But I had this realization that I was in the fourth dimension, and that from that perspective, I could see this dimension, and I could see how easy in that dimension that all you had to do is have an intention in that fourth dimension, and that it would blast into the 3-dimension, which is our waking reality. So I had this blast of a realization that, okay, so that's where movement is, and all it is just like a little push. So it's like a little push. So when you're falling asleep, you're in the sats, just like Neville, the relaxed state akin to sleep, a state in which I am consciously in control of my imagination and capable of fixing my attention on a mental object. Well, in my sats experience yesterday, I wasn't focused on a mental object. I was more just focused on receiving. And then I got to that place where I realized that everything coming from there is what makes all of here. I'm trying to put it into words that are comprehensible because it was a full comprehension and realization, but not necessarily in words per se, but of knowing and feeling. And that was yesterday morning. So there it is recorded. I did not write it down, but recording it now is enough. Okay, we're going to move on. If it is difficult to control the direction of your attention while in this state akin to sleep, you may find gazing fixedly onto an object very helpful. Do not look at its surface, but rather into and beyond any plane object, such as a wall, a carpet, or any object which possesses depth. Arrange it to return as little reflection as possible. Imagine then that in this depth you are seeing and hearing what you want to see and hear, until your attention is exclusively occupied by the imagined state. At the end of your meditation, when you awake from your controlled waking dream, you feel as though you had returned from a great distance. The visible world which you had shut out returns to consciousness, and by its very presence informs you that you've been self-deceived into believing that the object of your contemplation was real. But if you remain faithful to your vision, this sustained mental attitude will give reality to your visions, and they will become visible, concrete facts in your world. Define your highest ideal and concentrate your attention upon this ideal until you identify yourself with it. Assume the feeling of being it. The feeling that would be yours were you now embodying it in your world. This assumption, though now denied by your senses, if persisted in, will become a fact in your world. Again, my experience yesterday morning was seeing that complete art. It's just a push. It's a slight push. The realization itself did not show that any effort was necessary. I just happened to be literally in the fourth dimension, looking from behind the push. I was looking from behind the perspective of, oh, it's that simple. You literally just push. So it's the same thing we're saying here. This assumption, though now denied by your senses, what's around you, if persisted in, that's the push, will become a fact in your world. You will know when you have succeeded in fixing the desired state in consciousness simply by looking mentally at the people you know. This is a very, very, very good point. When you look mentally at the people you know, well, let him say it first. This is a wonderful check on yourself, as your mental conversations are more revealing than your physical conversations are. Listen to that. Your mental conversations are more revealing than your physical conversations. If in your mental conversations with others, you talk with them as you formerly did, then you have not changed your concept of self. For all changes of concepts of self result in a changed relationship to the world. Remember, God, all that is, I am, right there. And here we are, self-concepts from Him. All of us. You're here trying to make this impression on your subconscious to then occupy this state here. This is your desired new reality. In this existing reality where you're not satisfied, you have a desire to improve your life, and you want to make that impression to then have this expression. This is your new expression. If you make the impression, you know it's done, because when you think of your friends and you have the same exact conversation, it's not done. But if that conversation is different, this is so easy to check. You just simply think of your friends. Just think of them. If you're using them in your impression, in staking the claim, if you're using them and they're congratulating you, then that conversation is definitely changing, because they're changing in that impressive state when you're in state akin to sleep. You're using them in the act with you. So the conversation is definitely changing. In my opinion, using them in the act with you is very, very powerful. Extremely powerful. When you are in your state akin to sleep and they're coming up to you, congratulating you on your new wealth, on your new health, on your new marriage, that is angels singing to you. There's no other way to put it. When you use the people you know in your imaginary state of your new health, wealth, or marriage, that is the angels. They're the angels of your life. If they're speaking to you and congratulating to you in that state akin to sleep, it is so. You've just constructed it. That's all the hard work we're talking about here. That's the construction. And you know it's done when their conversation in your mental state, when you think of them, when their conversation is different in your mind. You know this is done. You know you're in the Sabbath. Remember what was said earlier. What you see when you look at something depends not so much on what is there as on the assumption you make when you look. Therefore, the assumption of the wish fulfilled should make you see the world mentally as you would physically were your assumption a physical fact. The spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. This is the natural man. Spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. Desire is built in you. It's never going to stop. It's never going away. Period. Desire is. It's not someday I'll have a desire. No, you always have a desire. If you have a pulse and a 98.6 approximately, you have a desire. Period. The key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in the ready obedience to the voice. unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. To desire a state is to have it. If you're here, single, not married, not in love, but you want to be, to desire a state is to have it. There it is. Once you desire it, you have it. It's already yours. You wouldn't have a desire for it if it wasn't already yours. It already literally exists within you, waiting for you to touch to completion. As Pascal said, you would not have sought me had you not already found me. Man, by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and then living and acting on this conviction, changes his future in harmony with his assumption. To change his future is the inalienable right of freedom-loving individuals. There would be no progress in the world were it not for the divine discontent in man, which urges him onto higher and higher levels of consciousness. I have chosen this subject so close to the hearts of us all, changing your future, for my message next Sunday morning. I am to have the great joy of speaking for Dr. Bales while he is vacationing. The service will be held at 10:30 at the Fox Wilshire Theater on Wilshire Boulevard near La Cienega Boulevard. Since the right to change our future is our birthright as sons of God, let us accept its challenge and learn just how to do it, which is what all these videos are about. Again, today, speaking of changing your future, I wish to stress the importance of a real transformation of self. Not merely a slight alteration of circumstances, which in a matter of moments will permit us to slip back into the old dissatisfied man. In your meditation, allow others to see you as they would see you, were this new concept of self a concrete fact. You always seem to others the embodiment of the ideal you inspire. Therefore, in meditation, when you contemplate others, you must be seen by them mentally as you would be seen by them physically, were your conception of yourself an objective fact. That is, in meditation, you imagine that they see you expressing this nobler man you desire to be. If you assume that you are what you want to be, your desire is fulfilled. And in fulfillment, all longing to be is neutralized. This also is an excellent check on yourself as to whether or not you have actually succeeded in changing self. You cannot continue desiring what has been realized. Very fascinating. Very fascinating. Remember, incubation, what's been realized. You're in the Sabbath, it's coming. And when you try to focus on that object again, there's no desire there. Desire is deflated. You're impotent of desire for that thing which you have already succeeded in acquiring. It's now you are in the Sabbath of it. It is on its way. You might not have gotten the email from FedEx or UPS, but it's showing up at your door. Rather, you are in a mood to give thanks for a gift received. A gift received. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Your desire is not something you labored to fulfill. It is recognizing something you already possess. It is assuming the feeling of being that which you desire to be. Believing and being are one. The conceiver and his conception are one. Therefore, that which you conceive yourself to be can never be so far off as even to be near, for nearness implies separation. Remember, nearness implies separation. You are not separated from your desire, and you're not separated from its acquisition. Believing and being are one. The conceiver and his conception are one. Therefore, that which you conceive yourself to be can never be so far off as even to be near. For nearness implies separation. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. If you assume that you are that finer, nobler one you wish to be, you will see others as they are related to your high assumption. You will see others as they're related to your high assumption, the one you are, that you will be, formed by desire. When I say will be, I don't mean hope. I mean it's already arriving. The train's pulling in the station. All enlightened men wish for the good of others. If it is the good of another you seek, you must use the same controlled contemplation. In meditation, you must represent the other to yourself as already being or having the greatness you desire for him. As for yourself, your desire for another must be an intense one. As for yourself, your desire for another must be an intense one. It is through desire that you rise above your present sphere, and the road from longing to fulfillment is shortened as you experience in imagination all that you would experience in the flesh, were you or your friend the embodiment of the desire you have for yourself or him. Experience has taught me that this is the perfect way to achieve my great goals for others as well as for myself. However, my own failures would convict me were I to imply that I have completely mastered the control of my attention. That's Neville saying that. What we're trying to do, and one of the main goals of this experience together, is to master the control of our attention, our feelings, and our thoughts. I can, however, with the ancient teacher say, this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize. Wow, man, oh man, that was a wonderful lecture. That was the radio lecture. The law of assumption. So many goodies in there. It must be an intense desire. That's my favorite piece. Where is it? In meditation, you must represent the other to yourself as already being or having the greatness you desire for him. As for yourself, your desire for another must be an intense one. They're going to change in your mental landscape of them. When you converse with them in your mental landscape, they're going to change because your desire is so intense. When you see them congratulating you on your change, or you are congratulating them on their change within your SATS experience in your meditation, they're changing. They have no choice. You're going to embody all that you inspire. They have no choice but to see you that way. They will change per your embodiment of that which you inspire. That was a good lecture. Man, okay, we're going to see you in the next one.